All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks everybody for being here. Um, Obviously, as we work through some of our previous ARPA webinars and with the state budget department, they had talked a lot about the ID.me process and their experiences with going through it and getting set up to be the reporters for the state. So I reached out to ID.me and they were gracious enough to put me in touch with Hal Bowron from ID.me, and he gathered up some more folks too, some subject matter experts, and including Tom DiBenedetto, you see up there at the top, to hopefully just demystify the process a little bit. I know with some of the folks that have already went ahead and went through and gotten certified through ID.me, just the getting some feedback from them about what type of documents and whatnot. So I just wanted to kind of go straight to the source and give these guys a chance to kind of walk you guys through the process. Obviously, this is something that we'll want to get to sooner rather than later, even though Treasury punted this first reporting deadline to April. There's still going to be a bit of a bottleneck towards the end, just like tax time. Where you're going to get the folks that don't take care of it now are going to be rushing to the gate there at the end. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Hal and Tom, and then they'll introduce us to the representatives that are here from Treasury as well. So with that, go ahead and take it away. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin. And thanks for that scene setter. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So my name is Hal Bowron. I am an account executive here at ID.me. I specifically cover the state of Wyoming. I was not necessarily involved in this overall deal, and so I wanted to bring along a teammate of mine that was very involved with kind of, this was a project that he with on a lot. And I figured he would be the best person to kind of walk you through the process and answer any questions that you may have. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tom for an introduction.
Thanks, Al. And yeah, Justin, thanks for the introduction. And hats off for pronouncing my last name right, because that's a tongue twister. So, but yeah, so my name is Tom DiBenedetto. I am a senior customer success manager here at ID.me, supporting our partnership with many federal agencies, including the Department of Treasury, IRS, and a few others. So before we dive into more focused discussion on ID.me and what we do, I do want to introduce representatives from Treasury. So Matt, if it's okay, I'm going to pass it over to you to introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, this is Matt Stevenson here. I'm a program manager for the recovery plan for Treasury on the IT side, working with our CIO's office. It's nice to meet everyone, and I apologize if you hear my lovely 6-year-old doing his homework in the background.
Awesome, thanks Matt. And then Saram, do you mind introducing yourself as well?
I don't know if Sriram's on yet. I will ping him and make sure he arrives, but I'll introduce him in lieu of him being here. Sriram is our technical project lead for a lot of the work that we do with both ID.me and ServiceNow and Salesforce and a couple of the other products that we use.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt. Alrighty, so the purpose of this conversation, and Justin, feel free to correct me, or Hal, is to really give this group an overview of what ID.me provides in the context of Treasury and the different programs that they offer. So what ID.me does in very simple terms is that we are a secure login. And what we do is we are an identity verification layer prior to accessing the underlying application. So for the purposes of this discussion, I will present my screen, hopefully have some visuals here that'll help facilitate. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep, we can see it, Tom.
Awesome. So I'm just going to quickly kind of give an overview of what we do before diving into the more detailed flow of what you all would expect in going through the verification process. So as I mentioned, we are what's called a credential service provider or a secure login. And you might be familiar with this green button here, but we are the login for this particular Treasury program that's of relevance to this group. So prior to or when trying to access this portal, this Treasury portal for reporting, you will have to log in with ID.me and verify your identity. Once you verify your identity and create this account, you only have to do that once, and then you can then simply log in to that portal once you have a valid credential associated with your ID.me account. What's unique about us, or one of the differentiators, is that once you do have a valid ID.me account, it is a portable credential. So you can take that login and access many other government services or commercial services as well. So you won't have to memorize a bajillion passwords anymore, hopefully. Any questions at a high level? I don't want to kind of belabor the point, but I do just want to make sure that everybody has the foundational knowledge of what we do. Okay, so with that, I'm going to jump into a quick click-through demo. So for this demo, it is IRS branded, but I would encourage you to kind of ignore that, because for the purposes of this program, you will see the Treasury logo up at the top. So when you are creating an ID.me account, you'll actually have to enter your email, which for your ID.me account is your login or username, and you'll have to create, obviously, a password. You accept the terms of service, and you will be able to create your ID.me account. You will have to then confirm ownership of the email, or which is in this case your username. Once you confirm your email by going to your inbox and clicking on the confirm email link, your email has been confirmed and you can continue with the process. You'll then have to set up multi-factor authentication. And we offer a suite of different MFA options, but the vast majority of individuals leverage our text message SMS method. So what this is doing is you'll enter your phone number. We'll send you a text message with a short one-time passcode. And you'll take that passcode, enter it back into the window here, and you'll be able to proceed. And so I'm going to quickly shift gears here, because this is where you'll then be taken if you're creating an account. And this is where the identity verification comes into play. So in particular for Treasury, if you're creating an ID.me account, you'll have to verify your identity on a video call with one of our trusted and certified, what we call a trusted referee. And their purpose is to review the documents and the evidence that you provide and confirm you are who you say you are before granting you this credential to then take to Treasury and access the Treasury application. So to start off, you'll have to enter some personal information about yourself. So first, middle, last name, your date of birth, your phone number, and your full address. You'll then have to enter your social security number. And the reason we ask for your social security number is that this helps us confirm you are you in authoritative records. So we kind of look back to different financial and credit bureaus. We reconcile their databases to understand you are you. So after entering that information, you'll then have to provide some document evidence to further confirm your identity. And based on federal guidance and federal guidelines, you have to provide 2 primary documents or 1 primary and 2 secondary. And you might be asking, what does that even mean? I did just drop a link in the chat of the full listing of primary and secondary documents that we accept. And I do see there's a question in the chat, so happy to address and take a pause really quickly. So, is the address you use your personal or municipality? Great question. This would be your personal address. So I do want to reinforce the fact that this account acts as your digital identity, as you as an individual. So when referencing this information that you're entering here, this is all information relevant to you as an individual rather than the municipality. For the address, yes, it does have to be a physical address.
And that, Tom, just to chime in real quickly, sorry to interrupt, that a lot of our towns may not have, you know, they may be on a PO box, mail delivery, just they may not have door-to-door mail delivery. So you still want a physical address if their mail is delivered only by PO box.
Yes, that's correct. And currently, we don't support PO Box as an address, but that is something that we're looking to incorporate with our product. Great questions, and please feel free to interrupt me, chime in, or drop questions in the chat. Apologies for not addressing it immediately. So I did drop this link in the chat, but on our website, there is a bunch of helpful resources that'll help you through the identity verification process. And the list here is our full list of primary and secondary documents that we accept for identity verification. So it's a pretty long list. We won't go through each one line by line, but I have dropped that in the chat for future reference if you'd like to take a look. And I would encourage this group as well to, I'm going to drop this in the chat as well, but this is our general help site. Feel free to take a look if you have additional questions, and leverage the search functionality if you have a specific question as well. Alrighty, so continuing on here, again, you'll have to upload either 2 primary documents or 1 primary and 2 secondary documents from that list that we just walked through. So the first will upload 1 primary document. And you can select from this list here for the purposes of this demo. I'll go ahead and choose US driver's license. And then double check to make sure that the document, in this case, the driver's license that you have in your possession, meets the document requirements listed below. Additionally, we want to make sure that the name entered previously when you were entering your personal information matches exactly the information on the driver's license or whatever document is relevant for this step. And so you can see that we input Casey Owens before. If maybe you put in a nickname prior or something like that, you can easily go back and edit that information. Next, we will upload our next document. So whether that's one primary or two secondary. So if we wanted to go the secondary route, there are a bunch of documents that we can look to upload here. But for the purposes of this demo, we will choose a US passport card. Similarly, we'll make sure that the document requirements are met before proceeding. Again, similarly, since this is a primary document, we want to make sure that the name entered is identical to what is on the passport card. In this case, it should say Casey Owens. And I see another window here. If the address does not agree with the current address, and Hal, you might have a better understanding of this. I'm honestly not too sure. I don't think that it'll impact your verification, but
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look. I know that there's some attributes that as long as you have the correct address on certain documents, it should be okay. But let me get an answer back on that, and I can give that back to Justin.
perfect. And great question. So thank you for asking. So the next step, since we've chosen which documents we want to provide here, we'll have to, just to recap, we selected the US driver's license, a US passport. We will either have to upload an image or take a live image of that document here. In addition to the documents that we've uploaded or selected, we will need to take a selfie to proceed with the verification. And for those not familiar with the term selfie, it's just taking an image of yourself. So for the purposes of this demo, we will choose to upload an image of our driver's license and not capture a photo. So this is assuming we have a saved image, a JPEG, PNG, a PDF, or TIFF file of the US driver's license. So we'll go ahead and choose the image. We'll upload it from our device. And then we do want to make sure that the image or the document here meets the image requirements, the document requirements. So is the license valid and unexpired? Yes. Does this document allow you to drive a vehicle? Yes. Is this the back image of a driver's license? Yes. And then we can proceed. We'll go through a similar process here for the passport card. We'll choose the image, it'll be uploaded, and we'll confirm that it meets the image and document requirements. So the back image, we will continue. And then lastly, we'll have to take a selfie. And for this, we'll actually take a live selfie. So we'll take a selfie in the moment. We won't upload a selfie. So we've checked the box that we'll take a photo here. We will input the mobile phone number that we want to capture this photo with. And a text and a short link will be sent to your phone where you can then capture the image from your phone. So the text will look something like this. When you click on this hyperlink, it'll take you to a process where you can capture the image live from your mobile device. And then similar to the documents, we'll ask that the image meets the same image requirements. So there's no filters. You're not taking any Instagram photos here. We're just asking you to confirm you are you. So we're going to continue. And then this is where you'll return to the previous browser. So let's say if you're going through this process on your desktop, you'll return to that previous browser. If it's on a mobile device, it'll seamlessly transition you to the next step. So now we can review the different documents and images that we've already uploaded or taken. And if there's any issues, you have the option to change the images here.
Hey, Tom, that button there on the lower left, I know that our folks from our budget, the state budget department had mentioned if for whatever reason you don't have your documents, you can hit save and exit and then come back and populate those fields or continue on with the process.
Great point, Justin. So yeah, so let's say you just have your driver's license on you in that moment. You can upload the front and back of your driver's license, and then let's say you don't have another primary document or two secondary that at the moment that you're going through this process and you want to come back later, you can easily hit save and exit, and you'll kind of start from that sign-in page where then you'll sign in with that email and password, and you'll jump right back to where you left off. And so you don't have to go upload those different documents again.
And to kind of add a little bit of flavor to that, so that's the reason why you set up the multi-factor authentication as the first step. So the first step in identity proofing is securing your account so that any information that you put in at that point, is secure. So if you need to save and exit, you can do so, and then you come, log back in, authenticate your session, and then you pick up where you left off.
Thanks, Hal. Yeah, great point. Alrighty. So now that we have all the evidence here, we'll continue the flow. And you'll be entered into a queue, or basically a line. And what's going on in the background is that our document reviewers are reviewing the evidence that you've uploaded. And we're confirming that it matches the information that you've entered. We're also confirming that it's valid and authentic documents. And once that takes place and the documents are reviewed, you will then, oops, I'm sorry. Once it's about 5 minutes from your time to meet with a trusted referee in a video call, we'll prompt you to confirm that you're still there. And then you'll be prompted to enter into a video call, and you will have to bring those physical documents as well into that video call to then present those documents in that video session. So from here, I'll join the video call. And again, this is a demo, so we're not going to be joining any additional Zooms, but you'll join a Zoom or a video call with a trusted and certified IDME representative who will ask you to confirm the information you entered, present the documents that you have uploaded here, and then they will reconcile the information on their side. Any questions in that process, the verification process? Alrighty, and so once you complete the video session with the trusted referee and you successfully verify your identity, you'll receive an email, and you also receive explicit guidance from the trusted referee agent to return back to the Treasury application. Once you return back to that Treasury application or portal, you'll be able to then simply log in with that IDME account that you created and the credential that you now have. And so all you'll have to do is put in that email, that password, complete an MFA event, so that text message, and input that short code, and then you'll be able to access the portal. You won't have to go through the identity verification steps again.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point to touch on again, Tom. This is a one-time event, so you only go through identity proofing once, and then once you have that credential minted, you simply just use your username, password, and authenticator, and you're good to go.
Yeah, and just for the purposes to make sure everybody understands, the sign-in portion is even more simple. So email, password, sign in, you select the MFA option that you would like to proceed with. In this case, we'll choose the same SMS that we previously set up. Our phone number is already saved. We'll take that code that's sent to our phone, input those 6 digits, and then we will proceed to the application. What you're seeing here is we're basically asking if we can share this information here with, in this case, it would be the Department of Treasury. And once you hit allow and continue, you'll be routed directly to that application.
And one of the things I think to touch on this page, Tom, so what kind of separates us from other credential service providers or identity providers out there is that we believe that an individual should be the sole owner of their information. And so when you create an IDMe account, you're sharing this information. And then whenever you take that credential, because again, it's a portable credential. So once you take that credential and you want to go log in, at Treasury, you have to consent to release your information to that application. And so this screen is basically saying, hey, before we, in this case, IRS, before we send you back to the IRS, we need your permission to share these specific attributes with this agency. And so that's what you have to select allow and continue. And then once you do that, you can proceed. And of course, you're able to go to your it's called your my account page on your IDMe credential. You can see whatever organizations you've authorized to have this information, and you can revoke access at any time. So the user is in full control of their information, and it's completely consent based. And so that's what this screen is.
That's a great point, Hal. Thanks for bringing that up.
Just a couple of quick things. Just for those that didn't join us on the webinar we did with the State Department or Budget Department, where they talked about this, there are 3 reporting roles in this Treasury process. As Director Hibbert from the State Budget Department mentioned, and as the Treasury reporting guidance that we've got posted on our website links to, mentions too, it doesn't have to be 3 separate individuals in our bigger communities. I think that's, where you've got a little bit of more crossover site and more eyes on. I think that's kind of become the expectation of what they're working with. But with the, as Director Hibbert mentioned, you can, and as the Treasury guidance stipulates, you can't have one person in all 3 roles. But if you are going to have more than one person, any other people, whether it's 2 people, 3 people in those 3 roles, will all have to go through this process individually to be able to use the reporting portal. I guess one question I had too, Tom, in looking at something like this and then looking at some of the other applications where it showed like retail partners and whatnot too, kind of early on, just to sort of allay some things, like, does this something like, if I'm going to go shop on the Disney website, I probably don't want to share my social security number necessarily with those folks. So kind of, could you maybe run through sort of some of the safeguards or fail safes, so that maybe it's tailored a little more specifically depending on who it is that you're interacting with your digital identity?
Yeah, that's a great point. So as Hal mentioned, I mean, the individual has complete control and ownership of their information. So with any point of authenticating to what's called a relying party, but would be any sort of partner. So in this case, the IRS or Treasury or Disney, anytime that you are logging in for the first time with that relying party or organization, you will be presented with this screen, and we will be very transparent as to what information is being shared. And you will have the opportunity to say, yes, I want to share that, or no. For those more commercial partners, and we do have an offering where you can prove you are a part of a subset of the population. So a veteran, a first responder, a teacher, that kind of different groups. Once you confirm you're a part of those different groups, you have access to different group discounts for those commercial entities. For the purposes of this discussion, this is a higher assurance level or requires higher identity proofing to access these treasury applications. And that's why we require additional information like SSN and date of birth. Does that make sense?
You bet, thanks. Perfect.
And Justin, you did bring up a really good point, and I do want to just reinforce that, is that this acts as your online identity. So if you do have reporting requirements that you have to abide by or adhere to, you can't go through this process on behalf of another individual. To your point, Justin, if there are multiple individuals that have to fill the roles to then go report within these portals, each person will have to go through this process individually. And then lastly, I do want to jump over to our support site and just kind of give you a quick rundown of the additional resources available to you all. So we do have, hopefully, most of your questions answered on this site. And then if you do have additional questions, or if some of your questions aren't answered, obviously, if it's okay with you, Justin, I would encourage them to route them your way, and then we can coordinate with you and make sure that all questions are answered.
Sure, you bet.
So I guess now, Justin, I think that was all really like the presentation we had. So now we just really wanted to open up to the floor if there's any questions that maybe we can answer, if there's, something that our representatives from the Treasury can answer, would love to turn the floor over to you guys.
Sure. One thing that I've gotten from a few members, that have some maybe reservations a little bit, maybe haven't been through a process like this, for other applications. Not all of our communities do a lot with the federal government when it comes to grants or those kinds of things. The question I've gotten a few times is, why is this my personal information as opposed to, just because I'm reporting for the town? Why isn't it just the town's information? Why does it have to be my information? So I guess I wanted to sort of pitch that out there to see why the requirement of the individual's information specifically. And as I've kind of pointed out to a lot of folks, obviously other parts of some of these federal relief programs, obviously you had like the PPP loans and some of those things where there's been some fraud on the back end that we've read about and those sort of things. And I said, I really think it's more of a crossing T's and dotting I's and making sure that they know exactly who it is that's submitting the information so that there's that accountability, down the road. But I guess I just wanted to sort of pose that question and kind of get you guys' answer on that to hopefully maybe allay some folks' concerns on that.
Sure, and I can give a generic answer, and then if Tom has anything specific to add about the context of this program, then he can. But like we were talking about, this is about creating a secure digital identity, and you know, as was, I guess, highlighted by the pandemic, you know, there were folks that, you know, everyone needed to still, you know, go about their lives in a digital capacity. And there just has never been a way for an individual to prove that they are, you know, who they say they are in a digital capacity. And so where it was really evident was specifically with, you know, unemployment insurance. You know, there were, you know, folks that were in need. And because there weren't necessarily those, there wasn't a way to prove that you were who you said you were, there were unfortunately bad actors who were taking advantage of that system and were, you know, flooding these systems to such an extent that real genuine individuals couldn't receive the benefits that they needed. And so it effectively locked them out from ever receiving benefits. And so that's the reason why this process exists. And there's actually a whole spectrum of identity proofing, and it's all associated with the risk of the transaction. And so in a scenario where there's, you know, benefits flowing back and forth, or there's, you know, sensitive information flowing back and forth, obviously, you know, both parties involved want to make sure that, hey, I think that I'm interacting with Justin, but, you know, I need to know that this is actually Justin that I'm sharing this sensitive information with. And so that's really the purpose of this, is creating a trusted environment for both the relying party, the person who's receiving that information, but also the person who's providing that information, knowing that you're not, you know, having your identity stolen or you know, giving away information that you shouldn't be. So it's creating a trusted, you know, a trusted place to share information.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Hal. And I can see how there can be confusion, kind of reporting on behalf of a city or a group. So I can see that confusion, but to Hal's point, it's just to protect all parties involved. And you know, these are high risk transactions in a sense, because there are funds involved. So our purpose here is just to confirm you are who you say you are, before allowing you to go through this transaction. But I also do want to let Matt and Saram maybe highlight anything on their side.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think you guys did a really good job of explaining the reasoning behind why we're using such a robust identity system like this. And I also want to make a distinction, because I too am aware of the fact that you're providing this sensitive information. How is it affecting the grant? And there is a very distinct line between the information that you're providing to ID.me for purposes of, for the best metaphor, getting in the door to our systems. And there's a line between that and the information that you're providing in the grant application. They are not the same things. The info that you're giving to get in the door to access the program, the actual digital process, is different than the information that you're using for your application for your municipality, state, local, tribal, whatever it may be. So those things are separate. We're not taking your photos into account or anything like that when we're doing our program assessment or the application assessment at all.
I've also too, Matt, and I don't know, I was speculating a little bit, but we're talking with members with obviously the new infrastructure bill that was just signed into law, as well as the secondary infrastructure, social infrastructure bill that's still being debated on Capitol Hill. You know, I made the point that there may be further use for this digital verification when it comes to some of those programs, depending on how the distribution of those funds for some of these infrastructure projects kind of comes to fruition. So I was speculating a little bit there, but just in, if this is something that, the federal government continues to want to use, or Treasury specifically, if you're administering those funds as well. So.
Absolutely, yeah. We haven't seen what it's looking like when it's in fruition yet. We will be able to when it comes sort of further down the Treasury's pipeline. But our goal is to make this as easy as possible for people to get grants in a trusted environment. So if there's ways that we can reuse systems or make it so that people don't have to go through large identity hassles or verification, then we'll do whatever we can to make it easy for the public.
And is this something that's been kind of adopted across the federal government? I know a lot of we've got some communities that interact more with federal grant programs and those kinds of things, like say through USDA. Is this something that, will kind of help our folks along to kind of already have this in place if they're going to say seek a USDA water development loan or those kinds of things? Is it something that's been kind of adopted across the different federal government agencies?
It's in place in a couple different groups. We do have different verification systems depending on the programs. I'll let Tom and Hal talk a little bit more about other groups that may be using it. But yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And Justin, to answer your question, identity verification in general, the concept of it is a hot topic right now, and it's being implemented across the board, both in public sector and private. For federal and state and local, which Hal can probably speak to a bit more. Across the federal government, ID.me is being adopted pretty rapidly, especially at the IRS. The IRS has majority of their applications to access different tax records, different child tax credit benefits. ID.me is the primary credential service provider. So it is being widely adopted across. And Hal, I don't know if you want to speak to state and local.
Yeah, so I can add in there. So I use the unemployment insurance example because that's what I've been dealing with or what I've been working with. And so today there are 26 states that are using ID.me for their unemployment insurance, agencies, the workforce agencies. There's one actually in implementation, and then there are a few others in discussion. And so again, when we talk about this being a portable credential, it's, hey, if an individual is verifying their identity at a workforce agency to claim benefits there, well, where else are they interacting with state government? Where else are they, maybe claiming benefits, whether that's, things like SNAP, TANF, whether that's WIC, whether that's, ERAP, whatever those other programs may be. Well, you've already gone through identity proofing over here at, the workforce agency, and then you're going next door to this other agency. Wouldn't it be great if that identity could travel with you? And so that's what we're seeing with a lot of states that are seeing the value of having a identity as a shared service. The government's not having to pay over and over again to verify the same individual. That individual is not having to create new accounts over and over and over. They're not, they have one username and password. There is that security aspect. And so that's happening. I think in the state of Arizona, we have, I believe it's 4 different applications that are using ID.me today. And we see that, similar cases across lots of other states.
Yeah. And in summary, within the public sector, you can leverage your ID.me credential across, I think, 7 different federal agencies and 27 different states.
So at this point, if anybody that's in the group, I encourage you, if you have any questions, any concerns, if you want to pitch those out there. Obviously, we love the opportunity to talk specifically to this group of subject matter experts, and because we always record these and then save them for save them for the folks that weren't able to join us live. It always kind of helps to sort of flesh out the FAQ that develops out of these things. If we have some more interaction. So if anybody's got any other questions or comments, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourselves, feel free to do that and pitch that out to these guys.
And also, if there's no questions today, if you guys want to maybe filter those through Justin and he can kind of send them over to us, we can answer those as well.
Yeah, of course, I'm happy to do that as well. Again, we're going to continue to sort of prod everybody a little bit to hopefully get through this process sooner rather than later. That was one of my biggest fears when all of a sudden we started to come upon these kind of quick approaching deadlines when the original deadline was at the end of October. I said at one point in an internal conversation with our executive director, I said, I don't know how many referees IDME has, but I hope they've got a lot, because there's going to be a lot of people trying to do this all at once. So, and again, human nature would say that there's going to be a lot of people probably come, say, March and April time, that are all of a sudden going to be trying to push through this process. So if you can do it and be a little proactive and get it done before then, so that this doesn't become we don't, I'm sure me would appreciate that too, so that there aren't any drastic bottlenecks at that point, but just so that doesn't become a sticking point for anybody in their reporting process when we get to that April deadline. So with that, I don't see any questions. I don't see any hands up. So I do appreciate everybody being here. I appreciate obviously Tom and Hal from IDME and Matt from US Treasury. Treasury's got some great resources on their website as well. I know we've talked about the IDME ones, and we've got some of those links obviously on our website. They're from the front page of the WAM website on the ARPA resource page. But Treasury's been great, I know, about answering questions. Obviously, a lot of you are kind of in that guidance stage where you're starting to talk about the spending on these dollars and making sure that you're in compliance there. We will be having a webinar here coming up very shortly with the new state ARPA consultant, which of course that is a position or a resource that the state's paying for out of their ARPA dollars to help the subdivisions within the state government, with the whole process with their ARPA dollars. So hopefully avoid any pitfalls there too. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But with that, I'll go ahead and if there's nothing last second here, we'll go ahead and turn these guys loose, and I appreciate everybody's time. And if you do have any follow-up questions, anything comes to mind, feel free to email those to me, and I'll filter them through to the guys and get some answers back for you. So with that, we'll go ahead and sign off, and thanks again, everybody, for joining this morning, and we'll see you all soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, everybody.
You bet. Much appreciated.
Of course. Take care.
You bet.